fancy primary day music. Democrats have control at the state capitol, and today's primaries will shape the direction of legislative priorities.
Two high-profile races tonight are Democratic State Representative Elizabeth Epps versus Air Force veteran Sean Camacho, and appointed State Representative Tim Hernandez versus former immigration judge Cecilia Espinosa. Kyle, you're joining us now.
Yep.
These are some pretty big races for Denver.
Big races, and I think a lot of attention from outside the city is come down on these two races in particular, because at the end of the day, in a state that is controlled currently by Democrats, they have more control of the state than at any time before World War II, or since World War II. The differences in where the state goes is often determined by party primaries. Will it have more of a progressive left bent? Will it be more of a centrist, business-backed Democratic tilt, as we've seen over the last few decades in Colorado, which means that for the people who have deep pockets, who want to affect these races, they change the direction of the state by playing in primaries. Let's talk about two in Denver. Elizabeth Epps is the highly controversial far-left member of the state legislature in her first term representing East Denver. She staked out a number of positions on issues like calling for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, calling for more rights for renters. She's also an abolitionist. She wants to get rid of the criminal justice system and replace it with different forms of rehabilitation and community repair. Her style has not always made her popular with her fellow Democrats. It's made her a target among them, and a number of them, including her Democratic House Speaker and the Democratic governor, have endorsed her opponent, Sean Camacho, an Air Force veteran who was a Republican as of just a couple of years ago. Go to the other side of Denver, where you have another lightning rod far-left legislator in Tim Hernandez. He was appointed to take that seat. He's been a long-time teacher and community activist. Like Epps, he has a number of progressive positions that put him at odds with other Democrats. He's facing off against, as Angeline said, Cecilia Espinosa. This is a rematch of the vacancy committee when less than 100 people picked who was going to take that seat. Well, now Hernandez has to run to keep it, so he has to convince the broader community to support him. And in both these races, a ton of outside money has poured in to defeat Hernandez and Epps, who are two of the farthest left members of the state legislature. Tonight, we're going to be watching 11 races around the state in which a more progressive candidate is facing off against a less progressive or a centrist Democrat to see how that fares. And if one side or the other sweeps, that could drastically change the direction of the state legislature.
And when we look at these two specific races, right, you see Elizabeth Epps, she doesn't have a lot of support from her own party. But then on the other hand, Tim Hernandez, who does share many of the same views and positions, he has a lot of his House support.
Yep.
And so, you know, that it'll be interesting.
There's a personality issue, right? I mean, she has ticked off a lot of the people that she works with. She didn't show up in person for about the first 45 days of the session. She went up into the gallery with some protesters at one point, and she was arguing with a bunch of other Democrats. So there's a lot of interpersonal stuff with her that you don't necessarily see with Hernandez. I mean, he certainly is like a very kind of loud and strident guy. That's his personality. Yeah. But he does not seem to have alienated so many of his fellow members of the legislature. So that's just one storyline that we're watching tonight. What happens with Colorado Democrats? Obviously, Republicans, you can warm your hands on the glow of that dumpster fire. That's a whole separate issue that we're going to be looking at. And then, of course, there's all eyes around the nation tonight watching to see how Lauren Boebert fares in her Republican primary. So a lot to watch tonight.
I'm glad you brought this up, though. I mean, I think there's so much focus has been on the GOP and its struggles and, you know, infighting. But, you know, Governor Polis got involved in one of these races, at least in the state house. And, you know, you've got to think about the fact Democrats they're not all one happy, great party either.
According to Polis's team, it's the first time that he is endorsed against an incumbent of his own party. So that's a statement, right? He knows that that's a statement that he is endorsing Sean Camacho over Elizabeth Epps. The difference in 15 seconds between the fights within the Republican Party and the fights within the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party, the centrists are completely in charge. As much as you hear people say Colorado's kind of gone to the far left, it has not by any objective measure. It's ruled by centrist Democrats. But there's an ascendant progressive far left wing that's trying to pick off seats one by one by one, and now you see the center and some big money trying to knock that down. In the GOP, you had the rebel faction take over the party, and they're now trying to purge out the people who have run Colorado politics on the Republican side for the last 30 to 50 years. Very different types of fights in terms of the way that it's happening. One is complete chaos, and the other one, the Democrats, is just kind of bubbling up to the surface.
Interesting. You have so much to talk about, and it's a good thing you've got a lot of time tonight.
How about it? Yeah.
You got a big long stretch starting
much
at
time?
7 o'clock. Kyle Clark, you get 7 to 10:30, and if necessary, who knows? You might even get more.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Join us at 7 o'clock when the results come in on KTVD, streaming on 9 News Plus.
Sounds good. Thank you.